Under a new ordinance in Cincinnati, landlords have to accept late rent payments. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, this isn't a place that I normally cover in topics because, from what I've heard, Ohio is actually a pretty landlord-friendly place, but this piece of legislation here, which they're calling the pay-to-stay ordinance, is actually pretty tenant-friendly, and obviously anything that is anti-landlord and tenant-friendly always catches my eye, and that's why I'm bringing you this article. But before I get into the article, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you want to see on this channel. I'm going to work to keep bringing you articles about the eviction moratorium, rent control, Section 8, anything that's of interest to landlords. So, this article comes from wvxu.org and it says, Cincinnati landlords have to accept late rent under new pay-to-stay ordinance. And I'm kind of curious what this pay-to-stay thing is. It's not something that I've heard of before, so let's get into the article and find out. Cincinnati Council unanimously passed a pay-to-stay ordinance Wednesday aimed at preventing evictions in the city. The new law requires landlords to stop an eviction if the tenant can pay all past due rent and late fees. Councilmember Greg Landsman has been working on the legislation for over a year. There's money out there, either through the Community Action Agency, St. Vincent de Paul, Project Lift, our eviction prevention fund that the city established several years ago, Landsman says. Even if you can't secure the money by the time you end up in court, as long as you get the letter saying that they will pay, you will be able to stay in your home. Well, that's fine unless the landlord doesn't want them to stay in the place, okay? So the biggest problem with getting a tenant all the way up to eviction court and, getting to the place where you're about to evict them and then suddenly they coming up with the money, the biggest problem is that going into the future, this tenant has already proven that they're unable to pay. So a lot of landlords, they figure, hey, we're already in court. I've already paid my attorneys. I've already taken time out of my day to come down here to court. I've already got this tenant in here. Why not just get a better tenant at this point? Saying that, oh yeah, you're going to give me a little bit of rental assistance to cover a few months, and then 3-4 months down the line, this just happens again. And then I have to go through this whole process again to get rid of this bad tenant. And that's not what landlords want to do. Hey, we're running businesses here. So we have to look at all of the factors. And I don't like them taking away our ability to decide whether we want to keep this tenant or not. The Community Action Agency has more than $41 million available in rental assistance. City officials are working with CAA to speed up distribution of those funds. Nick DiNardo, managing attorney for the Housing and Consumer Practice Group at the Legal Aid Society of Southwest Ohio, says families shouldn't be evicted for non-payment of rent with so much financial help available. But frankly, it's a win-win situation because the landlords are being made whole, DiNardo says. They're getting all the back rent that's owed, late fees, and court costs. Maybe they are getting all of the back rent owed, but they're not getting it on time. So just by nature of the rent coming in late, landlords instantly are not being made whole. Okay, so obviously I haven't seen them talk to any landlords yet in this article because they don't normally talk to landlords in these articles. They're always set this stuff up. So, we're trying to keep tenants in their homes. Well, have they ever actually decided to, go and ask a landlord, hey, why would you not want to accept this rental assistance? Now, this isn't like the eviction moratorium rental assistance. This is just a general kind of different sort of rental assistance that exists for low-income tenants, and there's a lot of good reasons for landlords to not accept this either. And like I was saying just a few minutes ago, the biggest thing is if the landlord just wants to get rid of that tenant, they shouldn't be forced to keep them in their property. DiNardo says he's in eviction court most mornings and sees up to 75 evictions a day. The majority, he says, are for non-payment. Under Ohio law, a landlord can evict a tenant for being just 1 day late on rent. They are not obligated to accept the late payment. Other Ohio communities have enacted pay-to-stay laws, including Toledo, Dayton, Akron, and Yellow Springs. Yeah, like I was saying, Ohio, as far as I know, is a very landlord-friendly place. Okay, so yeah, when I read that they 1 day late on rent and you can evict the tenant, I mean that's what I like to hear. That's the way it should be throughout the country. Now, most landlords aren't immediately evicting people like that, right? But if you do have a problem tenant that you want to get rid of, you should have that option available. Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's this pay to stay stuff. You shouldn't be able to just pay the money and then the landlord, has to keep you in there. That's just not, it sounds like a good idea, but there's going to be unintended consequences, as always. And usually it's a slippery slope. Okay, we start off with stuff like pay to stay laws. Then we move straight into good cause eviction, which is an issue they're going up in New York right now, that's going on in New York. So, the way the good cause eviction is now, the city or the state is, giving you only little small specific number of reasons why you can evict someone. Well, this pay to stay stuff is the very first step before you start pushing into the good cause, okay? And then good cause is a push into rent control, okay? And obviously you see where all this slippery slope stuff leads, and I don't like to see stuff like this happening in Ohio and other very landlord friendly places, because that tells me that, hey, even here, in the Midwest, in landlord friendly places, you still aren't safe. These progressive ideas, these socialist ideas, they are spread throughout the entire country, and you can see that just by reading articles like this one right here. Council passed a temporary version of pay to stay in April, but voted down an earlier version of a permanent law. Some council members and groups representing landlords objected to the length of time it would allow tenants to halt an eviction with full payment. The updated ordinance requires a landlord to accept full payment or proof that an organization will pay the full amount until the initial eviction hearing. Oh man. So yeah, the big issue there was that the amount of time. Now, it doesn't say here in the article what the amount of time is. I wish they would have gone more into depth, but how long do you have to wait for that payment to come in? Okay. So let's say that one of these community groups or whatever says, hey, we're going to pay the rent, but then it takes them 2 months before they cut you a check. You're losing money for those 2 months, regardless of if they pay you back later. I mean, that's the main thing. You want your money now. And if you get a new tenant in there, they will pay you right now. So you don't want to end up stuck with a tenant who, they get rent assistance and then you still have to evict them later on. Don Brunner, president of the Greater Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Apartment Association, says the ordinance has support from both landlords and housing advocates. I think it's the first time we've all worked together and everybody's came to the table, worked hard to get this across the finish line with the goal of housing stability, Brunner says. Cincinnati's temporary ordinance expired soon after it passed, once Ohio was no longer under a state of emergency because of the pandemic. The new ordinance goes into effect in 30 days. And see, that's a good indicator right there. Okay, so the original reason they put this into place is because of the pandemic. So all of the stuff with the eviction moratorium, all the stuff with the pandemic is the real reason all these new tenant-friendly laws are coming all over the place, okay? And it's emboldened them. It's emboldened them to the point now where they want to tell people what they can do with their properties. Now, for this guy who runs the apartment association, I'll give him a break because he might see that, hey, this is a losing battle. We're not going to be able to prevent this. If we throw him a little bone, that might be his logic, okay? We throw him a little bone, then maybe they'll leave us alone. But that never happens, okay? Landlords end up paying the price because of all these laws, rules, and regulations they put in place. So, yeah, I mean, great article here. I don't like the fact that this new law is going to be put into place in anywhere, and much less here in the Midwest in a very landlord-friendly place. So hang in there for the landlords. Hopefully this isn't too bad for you.